What's going on, everyone? The Spurs and the Lakers have been linked in trade talks dating back to the offseason, right? They were trying to be the third team in the Kyrie Irving trade just to get some free assets by taking on Russell Westbrook. Once they traded DeJounte Murray, decided, hey, we're just going to tank. We're going to go for Victor Wembanyama. And they've been one of the best this season at tanking and putting themselves in a position for a Victor Wembanyama or a Scoot Henderson to kind of rebuild and retool that franchise, right? And even after the Kyrie thing fell through, the Lakers and the Spurs have had several conversations throughout. Pop has even said that he believes that the Lakers picks might be the most valuable in the league. So he's really active in trying to acquire those picks. The Lakers make a lot of sense with the Spurs, right? They could get several pieces, several players, but also a trade exception in any trade. Although the Lakers, they're not in a rush to trade Russell Westbrook because even based on reports, the value for Russ hasn't changed for other teams. Other teams still value Russell Westbrook as a negative asset. Therefore, they still want a first-round pick just to take on Russ. And if you're the Lakers, that makes zero sense, right? Because Russell Westbrook has actually been very good for you. He's embraced his role and is just being your playmaker. So why would you want to give a positive value player for you to another team that's a net negative, and now you have to give up an asset on top of that? It makes no sense. But as we move closer to the trade deadline, that might start, lightening up a bit. Teams may be more willing to take on Russell Westbrook to clear players and just get some assets in the process. Like the Spurs, for example, make a ton of sense. They got the veteran players that the Lakers could really use. You could get 2 or 3 players plus, again, that trade exception, which would be very valuable for the Lakers. But the Spurs right now, their asking price for these guys are insane. Right? Like they want a first round for Josh Richardson. They want a first for Doug McDermott. They want 2 firsts for Jakob Poeltl. So that's 4 first round picks right there. And the Lakers, even if they wanted to do that, can't even do that. But they're not getting a first for Josh Richardson. They're not getting a first for Doug McDermott. They probably wouldn't even get a first for both of them. All these guys are expiring deals. Teams aren't going to just throw away first-round picks in the hope. Jakob Poeltl, I think, would be worth a first-round pick to some teams. But again, he's an expiring deal that could just leave and walk. So it has to be a team that he wants to be at and wants to re-sign to. Otherwise, you just threw away a first-round pick for, a 4-month rental. But I do imagine as we move closer, San Antonio is going to need to come down on those asking prices. And San Antonio also has a pressing need that they need to resolve, and that is they're under the cap threshold. So they need to get salary to come on, and that's why, based on a new report from Air Alamo, which is a Spurs run thing, right? It's not a Lakers article. This isn't like a Laker bias thing. This is strictly from the Spurs perspective. They say, that the Spurs are re-engaged with the Lakers about a potential trade to kind of help both parties because the Spurs need to add salary to their books. And so this is what was said. So Spurs rumors, San Antonio back in talks for Russell Westbrook. And then it says, that being said, the Lakers have a bloated salaries and the Spurs are below the NBA's minimum team salary. This could encourage San Antonio to make a deal with the Lakers to take on the asinine and bloated Russell Westbrook or Kendrick Nunn contract. Just for taking Westbrook, the Spurs would expect a first-round pick, and if the Lakers wanted talent back as well, that would only increase the asking price. As the season slips away from Los Angeles and LeBron himself is rumored to be nearing a trade request, the Lakers might overpay for talented role players. The Spurs have no shortage of players who could elevate the floor of a franchise, and they can take money back. So, again, they are talking about how, hey, look, it could be a mutually beneficial thing, but the Spurs still want a first-round pick just for taking on Russell Westbrook. Now, unless they're willing to get rid of that, because, again, you have a mutually beneficial thing, and that's something that this doesn't mention, is that there's value in taking on Russell Westbrook, right? Like Spurs, based on this report, Spurs are still looking at it as a negative value. Well, it even says in this that they're under the minimum. You have to get above the minimum, otherwise you get penalized for that. So you have to do something. Now, is that Russell Westbrook? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's something else. But you have to figure something out to get over that threshold, and Russell Westbrook is the way to do it. And so if you're the Spurs, you're unloading guys that aren't going to be here after next season. You're getting some value for them in a first-round pick. I don't see the Lakers giving up both firsts. I just don't. So the Spurs are going to have to figure something out. Like, how much do they value going over the threshold and unloading these guys? You know, I could see the Lakers giving a first-round pick. Maybe you give an unprotected first. You give 2 seconds. And you give, you know, whatever, maybe a pick swap or something like that. I just don't see the Lakers willing to give both unprotected first-round picks for, you know, Jakob Poeltl, Doug McDermott, and Josh Richardson, right? I don't even think necessarily it's worth it. I wouldn't really be big on them doing that, period. I do think the Spurs deal might be one of the best deals for the Lakers as far as depth goes. You get Jakob Poeltl, who could start. You could have him come off the bench if you want to. He gives you a different look. He's a great passer, you know, great low-post interior defender. He's a guy that you could just drop the ball down to and just go get easy buckets. He could also be a trade chip if you wanted to. You could extend him and maybe look to move him in the offseason if you want to, whatever, right? Re-sign Doug McDermott. You get your sharpshooter, who he's not great defensively, but, you know, you need some shooting. Josh Richardson can kind of be like your KCP type player. So it does make a lot of sense for the Lakers to want to do the Spurs deal. Plus you get that trade exception, which now you could use that trade exception to maybe go get another piece or two. If you take on Doug McDermott and Josh Richardson, or just say Jakob Poeltl and Josh Richardson, whatever, then you'd get a bloated trade exception in, you know, 21 plus million. If you took all three, you'd still get around like a $15 million trade exception. So regardless, the Lakers would be in a great position for something like that. But I just don't see from the Lakers standpoint them, because Russ isn't a negative value to them, right? Russ is valuable to them. So the way they're looking at it is like, yes, I understand that you're just taking on Russ to buy him out, which is fine. But to us, we don't care about that. Russ has been good for us. We don't need to just unload Russell Westbrook. So it's really going to come down to like what team is willing, if a team is willing to take on Russ, which team is going to say, okay, well, we'll take Russ just to unload these guys and get something for these guys. Well, in the Spurs scenario, not only are you getting something for your guys, but you're also getting over the minimum for the cap, which helps you and benefits you as well. So there automatically is an inherent benefit, and then you're getting assets on top of that for your guys. Again, you're not going to get a first for Doug McDermott. You'd probably get a second, maybe 2 seconds. Same thing for Josh Richardson, a second, maybe 2 seconds. So the only one that's really worth a first-round pick is Jakob Poeltl. But even then, I don't see them getting a first-round pick because he's an expiring. So if you're the Spurs, you get a first-round pick for Jakob Poeltl essentially, and then you get 2 seconds. So that's basically the value of Josh Richardson, Doug McDermott, and then Jakob Poeltl. And then you're taking on Russ's salary to match salaries, and the value in taking on Russ is you get to the cap threshold that you need to get to. So now it's a mutually beneficial trade, right? Lakers get their pieces and what they want, and the Spurs get their cap, and they get a first-round pick in a couple seconds. That's kind of what I think, if this trade does happen, that's how it will go. But there's 2 ways the Lakers could approach this, right? Lakers could go Russ for either Josh Richardson and Doug McDermott and then get the giant trade exception. That could be an option. Or they could get, Josh Richardson and Jakob Poeltl or Doug McDermott. Basically 2 of the 3, right? They could get 2 of any of the 3 and then get a massive trade exception if they wanted to, which then they could use that trade exception maybe to go get like a Bojan Bogdanovic and another piece, right? Maybe Detroit would value the Bojan trade more if they could get a trade exception along with the first round pick, because they would look at it as like, okay, well, we'd have more flexibility with the trade exception rather than we take on some players or some salary that we don't really want or we don't really need. Well, now we have that trade exception that we can use, right? Because the asking price for Bojan Bogdanovic is a first-round pick and then a young player with talent. Well, hey, we'll give you, instead of that, we'll give you the first and we'll give you a trade exception. So that's the value and then some of a young player that you could have. You could go now use that trade exception to go get you a piece or 2 or however you want. Or the alternative is that the Lakers take on all 3, which I actually would prefer personally. Because if you can keep one of the first in the deal, then you could still take Patrick Beverley and Kendrick Nunn and go get a Bojan Bogdanovic, or maybe you could go get maybe a PJ Washington or something like that. Go get another piece to add, and now you got 4 players, and you'd still have the trade exception that you could probably use come the trade deadline, assuming this trade isn't the last minute. But even if you don't, you have that trade exception for a year, so you're still in a good place. You can maybe use it in the offseason or something. You have flexibility. Yes, it would be a smaller trade exception, but it's still enough to get a quality piece or a quality player. So you could work something out in that regard. Get a Jakob Poeltl, get a Josh Richardson, get a Doug McDermott, or the Lakers could look into maybe a 3-team deal. I even explored a potential 3-team deal between the Pacers, to where the Lakers would get Miles Turner and then the Pacers get Jakob Poeltl, and maybe you could work something like that out. So it'd be a 3-team deal. Just throwing out options here, but that would give the Lakers a little more flexibility. You get a center that could, start, come off the bench if you want, play next to AD, give you a different look. Again, he's a great passer, great interior post defender, as well as a great all around post game type of scorer. He's not the shooter that Miles Turner is, but you get a dead-eye shooter in Doug McDermott. You get a 3-and-D shooting guard and Josh Richardson, who can kind of be, your KCP type player. And then you could look to maybe package Lonnie Walker, Patrick Beverley, Kendrick Nunn, Damian Jones, like guys like that. You could package those guys and try to ship them out to go get another piece along with that other first. And like I said, maybe get a Bojan Bogdanovic, or maybe get, 2 pieces. Maybe you could get like a Kelly Oubre, or maybe you could get a Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier by just kind of stacking contracts, because you just did a 3-for-1 trade, right? So maybe you kind of stack contracts. They're all expiring, so it's not a big deal to the Hornets. Hornets get a first-round pick. You take, Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward or something, or Terry Rozier and Kelly Oubre, or, you could work something out, because at that point now you have enough depth to weather if Gordon Hayward gets hurt or something like that. This just gives you more flexibility. So I'd personally like to get all 3. Not just that, but you sign Jakob Poeltl to a long-term deal. That gives you flexibility in a trade, right? Because he is a solid center, right? He is a very good center. He can be a 2010 guy if you give him the touches and the opportunity, right? And he's also a guy which I actually prefer Jakob Poeltl over Miles Turner, because especially come playoff time, you're having AD at the 5, right? Like AD is going to be your 5. And so Jakob Poeltl, he's a guy that he's come off the bench for the Spurs, right? He's not that guy that's going to be like, oh, I need to start. You have to start me, right? Like, I'm here, you have to start. Like, he's a team guy. He just wants to win, whatever it takes. Where Miles Turner, you try to tell Miles Turner, hey, you're not going to start this game. We're going to bring you off the bench behind Anthony Davis. That might not go over so well, right? And Anthony Davis is your best center, even with Miles Turner, especially come the playoffs. If it's a game 7 or something like that, it might make things a little diluted, right? So I do still think the Spurs deal is one of the best trades. I think the Spurs deal and the Hornets deal is the best deals, in my opinion, because I think those 2 deals give you the most depth and give you the most starting level talent. You could start all 3 of these guys next to LeBron and AD if you wanted to. And then for the Spurs, again, you're getting assets and you're getting over the cap. And I just think it's a mutually beneficial win for all parties involved. I think that really helps everybody involved. So I don't know. It makes sense. I mean, look, the Lakers and the Spurs keep being linked together. They keep being talked in discussions. They keep having little back and forth. So at least something is there. It's just, can they come to an agreement that makes sense for both sides? Because again, I don't see the Lakers giving up both first-round picks. The Lakers are not just going to unload Russ just to unload Russ, which is kind of what the article alluded to. Like, oh, well, they'll take on Russ, but if you want talent back, then it's going to cost you more. And it's like, but it makes no sense from the Lakers standpoint, which again, that's why I highlighted, like, it's a Spurs article that basically talked about this. They're looking at it from the Spurs perspective rather than the general perspective, which is, hey, yes, you're right. Russ was at one point a negative value. The Lakers just wanted to unload him. Well, they were able to make it work. So that's out of the picture now. That's no longer part of the conversation. And you do need to get over the cap. So there is an inherent value for you. You have something that you benefit just by doing the trade. Even if you didn't get anything, you still get a benefit. You don't get penalized for being under the cap threshold. But on top of that, because we want talent back, we're going to give you what that talent is valued, which is 1 first and 2 seconds. You can make an argument it's not even worth the first right now because who else is going to give it? And if you're the Spurs, take the Lakers first, right? Especially with Pop, what he said, that he believes that it might be the most valuable asset in the league. Well, if you really believe that, then here's a first. Take an unprotected 2027 or 2029 first. You get one of these, you get 2 seconds, and then on top of that, we'll give you, maybe a pick swap or something, whatever, right? You work it out to where you get the deal done, and then everybody wins. The Spurs, they get to get over the cap now, so they're fine. They don't have to worry about that. They get some free assets for guys that they're just going to lose and unload anyway. And then the Lakers get those veteran guys that can come in, be solid, get playoff ready, and kind of make a push for the playoffs. And then come playoff time, you should be able to win with that. And you'd still have flexibility to do other moves. You could still go take Kendrick Nunn in 2 seconds and go get Cam Reddish if you want. So now you just added another wing to this mix. And then you could go take that trade exception and go, get another piece, right? So now you just added a 5th player. Right? And then you could stack contracts. Like I said, take Patrick Beverley, whomever, and now go make another move. Or keep Patrick Beverley, right? Because now you unloaded Kendrick Nunn, you unloaded Russell Westbrook, so now maybe Patrick Beverley makes more sense. So you keep Patrick Beverley, maybe you stack a couple other guys and go make another move for another small piece or two and use the other first, right? Go get some mid-tier value player, or go get a Bojan Bogdanovic or whatever. Like imagine if you could get these 3, add Cam Reddish and add Bojan Bogdanovic. I mean, come on, you're the best team in the league. Right? And it's not unrealistic because you would have the trade exception. You'd still have a first-round pick, and you'd still have salaries that you could stack. We know Cam Reddish's asking price is 2 seconds. Kendrick Nunn is an easy fix. Kendrick Nunn's salary matches perfectly. Boom, there you go. Here's 2 seconds. You get Cam Reddish. So now you got a sizable wing that can play both forward spots. You get a 3-and-D shooting guard. You get, a dead-eye 3-point shooter. You get a center that can, start or be the backup. You get, you have the trade exception. You could take Lonnie Walker at that point because now you have Josh Richardson. Take Lonnie Walker. If you want Patrick Beverley, Lonnie Walker, whatever. Boom, unload those. And then if you need a point guard or something, you're going to have LeBron playing point guard in the playoffs anyway. Or you just go sign a vet point like DJ Augustine or whatever. Somebody that can just be your 3rd point guard. And you're good. There you go. So anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Would you do this deal? Would you not do this deal? Do you think the Lakers should get it done? Do you think they shouldn't? Do you think it will happen? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments section.